Welcome to our coverage of the Vuelta a España, 3,800 kilometres. I'm Phil Liggett along with Paul Sherwin, and let's join the action on stage one here. It's a circuit race based on Cordoba in the southwest corner of Spain, 162 kilometres. Paul, the weather is scorching. It's 38 degrees Celsius at the moment.
It is a very hot part of Spain down here, and a lot of riders looking to see what the performance is going to be of the Festina squad. This is their first major rendezvous since they were thrown out of the Tour de France. Alex Zülle, one of those riders who was involved in that doping scandal which really marred the Tour de France this year, and they will be looking to try and clean the slate and prove that they are fairly clean riders.
And just a little more than 90 riders in the main field as we come into the last 3 kilometres before the finish here. And indeed a number of riders have been dropped, including Chris Boardman, so it's a rather disappointing start to the Tour of Spain for the Crédit Agricole rider who crashed out of the Tour de France amongst all of the doping scandals this year. And the riders now heading down to what looks like being a reasonably sized bunch sprint, but they are a long way ahead of quite a big group of riders. And as they come up towards the line now, it's going to be a tight fit. Seeberg gets it. Marcus Seeberg, the young rider whose brother Beat rides for a different team, has crossed the line first. That's got to go down as the best win of his career. So Marcus Seeberg gets the first Amarillo jersey of the Tour, finishing ahead of Juliano Figueras and Laurent Jalabert in third. And stage two, already the longest stage of the Tour, 235 kilometres, taking the riders away now from Cordoba to Cadiz. And not surprisingly, Paul, it's like a desert down this section of Spain at this time of the year. The riders all day were in no hurry at all to race this stage.
Well, it's a difficult part of the country to come and race in, especially at this time of the year, because half of Europe comes down here on holiday. And the early part of the race, the riders really meandered along and enjoyed the hot weather that really does dominate this part of Spain at this time of year. 35 degrees Celsius once again, but coming down towards the finish line, it was the big yellow jerseys of the ONCE squad on the front. And I feel certain, Phil, that Laurent Jalabert, who said that he wasn't interested in taking the lead so early on, has put a lot of responsibility on his team to keep the whole race together.
Oh, and there's been a crash in the sprint finish. The riders are tumbling down behind here. Jerome Blijlevens has got the victory, but they've left one or two riders scarred in that massive pile-up. As they came into the line, though, Jerome Blijlevens gets the victory ahead of Giovanni Lombardi of the Telecom team. Robbie McEwen of Australia and Rabobank, he gets third, but the yellow jersey staying on the shoulders of Marcus Seeberg. And the heat's certain to continue on this stage of 193 kilometres from Cadiz on to Estepona. And the riders again staying together in that tight field. Just the sprints for the small time bonuses along the road having their effect. And at the moment swinging the race in the favour of Laurent Jalabert, who is now breathing down the neck of Marcus Seeberg overall. But you know, Estepona are quite big players in the sponsorship of the Tour now. That's why the race is going around here. No doubt the reason why we're seeing one of the riders here having a chat with their team car as well.
Well, certainly an important stage for the riders too, because they move away from the Atlantic coast, head around the bottom of Spain, ride the Rock of Gibraltar, and then head in towards the Mediterranean part of the country. And once again, always near the front of these Spanish races, you can see the yellow and black jerseys of the Once squad, because for them it is so important to perform well here, and they're trying to make sure that they can put Laurent Jalabert in the yellow jersey of this race very early on. And you can see the winds in this part of the race really having an effect and splitting the main bunch.
Well, after being beaten by Marcus Zuberg first day, Switzerland, and then Jerome Blijlevens from Holland, it looks as though the Spanish are beginning to get a control of this race. The Tour of Spain is infamous for the fact that the Spanish do seem to control the racing. Ask Robert Miller, who nearly won it on one occasion. Here come the team now of the Post Suisse as they try to keep Marcus Zuberg in that Amarillo jersey. There's been a crash further down the road too. I didn't quite get a long enough glimpse of that rider, but it was a Mapei rider who's gone out the race, Paul.
You know, Phil, I think that was Paolo Lanfranchi who went down there. And what's going on here is because of the temperature, a lot of riders' reflexes are slowing down, but they're still taking the risk to try and stay at the front. And what's happening then is there's a couple of wheels are touching and several riders are falling to the ground.
Well, at least in this long straight they get a good sight of the finish, and a rider's touched the wheel there. The man on second wheel moved across him, took him out. So there's been another crash as they approach the finish, but the field now heading towards the line. Only two riders on the ground, and it looks as though the man who's going to win the sprint is Jan Kirstipro of the Estonian champion, gets the victory ahead of Marcel Wust. But there will be a change overall because of the bonuses along the route. Laurent Jalabert now leads the Tour by 2 seconds from Zuberg. So not surprisingly, pretty tight at the top after almost 600 kilometres covered. We're now on to stage 4 from Marbella along to Granada, 173 kilometres this one, and we'll stay in the hot weather for sure.
I'm quite certain a lot of these riders are very happy that we're not going up the Sierra Nevada, the big climb just out of the back of Granada here. But in the early part of the stage, in fact, it's Banesto who tried to hot up the racing because John Odriozola tried to go off the front and put a lot of pressure on. Abraham Olano is the leader of that squad, but early on in the race they've sent him out to try and open up the trails.
Well, Olano would like to feature in this Vuelta a España as the main field coming over. Laurent Jalabert having a good day so far. He's nipped a couple of seconds in time bonuses along the route, so he's building himself a little comfort in that leader's Amarillo jersey.
This part of Spain, as they pick their way through all of the olive trees, Phil, is a very difficult part of Spain to race through, because not only is it dominated by the heat, which is always on this part of the world, but it's also very difficult roads to race on. The road has a very difficult surface to it, and it feels in temperatures like this as if you're sticking to the surface all the time. And in fact now the Banesto guys have replaced Odriozola at the front with number 25, Jose Vicente Garcia, who's gone off the front as well. So obviously this afternoon Banesto have a plan and they want to toughen up the race.
Well, they're certainly loosening the legs, that's for sure now, so there's nothing about a promenade on the race today after having had a couple of days of silly crashes. Maybe that's another reason they want to get things on the move and try and loosen up. Just behind him now, the Amarillo jersey of Laurent Jalabert goes over in third place, which is interesting. He's taking a close interest at the front. The Spanish teams, remember, are still looking for their first stage win, and that's a while since they've gone so many days without one.
Certainly is a beautiful part of Spain down here, though, if you ever want to come down and ride your bike in this area, because the roads on the Arrière-Pays away from the coastline are devoid of traffic and you really can have some excellent bike rides. But I don't think Vicente Garcia Acosta is too worried about that at the moment. All he wants to do is try and stay at the head of the race. But you can see the main field really taking these intermediary sprints very seriously indeed. In fact, they're not giving Garcia Acosta much of an advantage.
No, he's been swept up. He's gone back into the pack with a long line of riders, meaning that the pace is on here. Kelme also riding well, and news reaching us too that Guerini, who's third in the Tour of Italy, has abandoned the race today, so I guess he must be sick or something, because he wouldn't have climbed off this early in the Tour. Looking at the face there of Jose Luis Ribera, remember the rider in the pouring rain that almost stole the stage into Milan on the last day of the Giro d'Italia.
Well, a chance here to see Alex Zülle, the former winner of this event last year. He's sitting at the back there of one of his Festina teammates, but a lot of work done at the front here by Team Telecom, who feel that they've got great chances of stage victories with their man Giovanni Lombardi, who so far, with 10 kilometres to go, is proving to be a very rapid sprinter in this year's event.
Well, this is the sort of day for Lombardy, and that's why they're working very hard for him now. Number 181 is Andreas Kloden, who's a pretty strong German. He's also won a stage of the Tour of Langkawi last year, I think it was, as they now try to set this one up. The Esteponian riders too, those green and white jerseys, would like a stage result because, as I say, this year they're getting some sponsorship into the Tour as well. There's the leader. Had a couple of seconds. He's gained 4 seconds on the road, in fact, in time bonuses, but he still needs a good result at the finish, I think.
Well, 5 kilometres to go, and Jaja looking very comfortable indeed. But it is great to see Lance Armstrong in the field here with the US Postal Squad, because Armstrong really riding for the first time a 3-week tour since he rode the Tour de France back in 1996.
Well, the riders fanning out now for what should be a sprint of all the riders. Jalabert trying to break into the action as well. Always difficult to pick out the yellow jersey in the Vuelta, but there he is, too far back, I think, as the race comes to the line, and he looks as though Marcel Wust is trying, but he's given way to Guidi. Lombardy right there, bangs his handlebars. Blyleven's was there. I think Wust only got 4th, but that really was a battle royale of the sprinters, and in fact Guidi, on the day his team leader retires, he gets the Amarillo jersey as well. So that's brought some smiles to the Polti team. Out is Guerini, and into yellow is Fabrizio Guidi. Lombardy second on the stage. So to stage number 6 between Murcia and Alicante, 201 kilometres. The 5th stage won in a sprint by Jerome Blyleven, his 2nd of the Tour. No change at all overall. The yellow jersey still with Guidi, but I think today on this rather sporting course, Paul, we might well see a new leader.
We certainly could do a very tough finish towards the end with the first category climb, the Col de Cati it's called. It's only 4 kilometres long, but it really is positioned perfectly for the finish. But obviously some of the lesser teams in this Tour of Spain trying to get publicity for their sponsors, going out early on. But again, we always see the big yellow squad of Once at the front of affairs.
That was Echeverria there being put back in his place. 10 kilometres to go for the whole field here now. And Guidi trying to keep his Amarillo jersey, got his team nicely in order. Just 7 kilometres from the finish here now, as the Polti boys keep the pressure on the front. No sign of Blyleven's now, who is the new leader in the points competition.
Well, I tell you, it's going to be very hard for Guidi to keep his yellow jersey this afternoon, because this is a very steep climb indeed. Some of the points of it are 20% as we come up this slope here. You certainly will be seeing some major attacks, so you can see the damage already being done at the back of the main field. And this is Pavel Pandronos of the Seiko team going very easily out of the back.
Which surprises me. He's not a bad rider, even so. But this is a very steep climb here. As we look at the Amarillo jersey of Guidi, he's also in trouble, Paul. He's being tailed off the main field, and this looks like Lance Armstrong going off the front. Well,
this is great to see. Armstrong has looked very good since the first day of the Tour of Spain here, and he's decided to come out and test his legs for the very first time. He, in fact, is coming right up to Jimenez. In fact, Jimenez is going by Armstrong at the moment, so that's a good move by the man who was a former champion of Spain and a very good rider on the Banesto squad indeed. But you can see the yellow jersey of the Tour of Spain this year in serious difficulties further down the slope.
Oh, Fabrizio Guidi here is waving goodbye to that Amarillo jersey. Here is Laurent Brochard, the world champion who has been in disgrace all year with the doping allegations, now back in the Tour. And riders cracking all over the place. This is Casero.
Spanish champion too is having a very hard time getting his rhythm going. He shouldn't be suffering at the back of the race like this. He is a rider who is expected to be one of the stars of Spanish cycling in the future. 4 kilometres to go to the finish, and Jose Maria Jimenez is leaving Lance Armstrong trailing in his wake. But coming up into the front of the race now, again, Laurent Jalabert, always a man to look for the victory on this kind of a finish.
Well, he's had some of his greatest occasions in the Vuelta a España, and he's not going to let it slide away too easily now. He's already had the race lead once in this event, but this hill is an absolute brute here, and Jimenez is creating some damage behind him, and also throwing a spanner in the Banesto works, I would suggest, because Olano is supposed to be the man at the front of the action for that team.
Well, he certainly is. Alex Zuller moving to the front of this very elite group now, being joined by one of his teammates, Felix Garcia Casas, a very good climber, trying to put Alex Zuller in a position to challenge, to keep himself up in the overall standings. This short climb here, Phil, has caused devastation in the main field, and Jimenez comfortably going over the top.
Well, Jimenez then over the top. Now he's starting his descent. I noted that Laurent Jalabert sitting close to the wheel of his former teammate Alex Zuller there. They know each other so well. Kelme rider just going through there was Hernandez. Here comes the field. and Zuller second over. So that's completely shattered now. I'm not too sure where Lance Armstrong has put himself either.
Armstrong was in that group there with Laurent Jalabert. I just caught a glimpse of him going over the top. Only around about 10 riders left in that front group. A very elite group indeed, but I didn't see any sign of Abraham Olano. And a great move with 2 kilometers to go by Jose Maria Jimenez, whose glasses just fell off there as he looked over his shoulder to see where the rest of the pack was. This is Heras Hernandez coming down here, and Armstrong leading the chase ahead of Laurent Jalabert. So Armstrong is definitely back.
Absolutely, he looked good as well. He looked pretty cool there, but this man is leading by the best part of 30 seconds here, so he's going to get the win. And that'll be Banesto's first win in this race since 1990, an 8-year gap. Julian Grospe was the last Banesto rider to get a victory, and second over the line is Heras. It was 27 seconds, and here comes Lance now, vying for third place. He's going to be challenged by Jalabert. Jalabert coming off his wheel. I don't think Lance can do anything, but a fourth place finish for Lance Armstrong. Jalabert taking the third place on the day, but a new leader now in Jimenez, and that means he becomes the leader of the Tour by 31 seconds. Jalabert is at 36, Olano at 58. Now the riders lining up for stage 7, taking them from Alicante up to Valencia before they cross over to the island of Mallorca. And this shouldn't provide too many problems. It's a flat race of 185 kilometres. And as they come into the last 3 kilometres again, the sprinters set to have their day here, Paul. I don't think anybody can stop that.
I don't think so. 2 kilometres remaining, and certainly the Tour of Spain has designed the early part of their race to smile for the sprinters, and it certainly is a good thing to see organisers doing, because sprinters get less and less chances these days in the big major stage races, but that's certainly not the case at the Tour of Spain.
As they all come down to the line together, there'll be no change overall here, but Lombardi is going to try and finally get across the line first instead of second, and he does it for the Telecom team. Lombardi ahead of Blylavens. So that was the order over the line. And with no change overall, the riders now crossed over to the island of Mallorca for 2 stages. This is stage number 8, and will take them up to the 1500 kilometre point. This is not an easy stage, Paul, because this is a mountainous little island.
It certainly is. Many of these riders know the roads again, because one of the early events that they do take part in is the one-day series of races here in the island of Mallorca. There, the final climb of the day out of Sola on the way down to Palma is certainly where the decisions are likely to take place.
So the Banesto boys are doing their job well here, not for Abraham Olano, at least not yet, but for Jimenez, who has the leader's jersey on. By the way, the last yellow jersey wearer from Spain in this Tour was Abraham Olano, and now it's over to his teammate Jimenez. Olano winning the yellow jersey in 1995. Little bit of a coincidence.
One of the Spanish riders on the US Postal Service team. This is Juan Llaneras, more renowned as a track rider and a former world champion. A good man to have in the squad. He was brought in by Johnny Welch, but further up the climbs, it's really the Kelme squad who are on their own terrain here, trying to get one of their men off the front, trying to break the stranglehold that the Banesto squad have had on since the very first few lacets of this climb.
Well, that's Jose Luis Ribera, who's gone clear, and he's a good climber. In fact, he had a great Tour here, come to think of it, last year. I think on the toughest mountain stage he won it, and so he's not afraid of the hills. Pascal Hervé, another one of the disgraced Festina riders, now in the Tour and trying to put matters to rights.
These riders trying to race hard and put all the problems from the Tour de France well behind them, but I should think Pascal Hervé has got a few more worries than just getting on with his racing at the moment, as he's managed to get across the gap there to Ribiera. Now there are 2 riders at the head of affairs, and still a lot of pressure on at the front of the main field by the white jerseys of Banesto, and Jimenez is riding like a man possessed, riding like a leader to the squad, and I would think later on there'll be some certain challenges to his own teammate Abraham Olano.
Well, whichever way you look at it, Paul, it is taking the pressure off Olano right now, because all of the riders are looking to the man in the Amarillo jersey. Pascal Hervé has been caught, but we still have that one rider up front, and the Banesto boys also trying to do something here. Armand de las Cuevas, who's a little bit of an enigma in the sport, but riding seemingly well at the moment.
Well, amazing to see De Las Cuevas riding so well here at the Tour of Spain, and I wasn't sure then whether he was going off the front or off the back, because we're looking here at the shape of Marcos Serrano, another revelation in the Tour of Spain last year, and once again the Kelme squad proving that they are a very aggressive team, always out on the attack, always looking for the move to toughen up the race.
Well, they've decided to do that today because they are launching attacks whenever there is a little lull in the pace, and there aren't too many of them today because the riders themselves are putting up a good race here on the island.
Jalabert going across there in second place, looking all of the time for the small time bonuses along the way and looking to try and get himself a few points in the King of the Mountains competition. Still, Serrano on the front with an advantage of around about 15 seconds, and now the chasing behind Laurent Jalabert is being done by Jimenez himself.
Well, the Kelme boys always at home when the roads go up as they continue to launch an attack here. We're still looking at Marcos Serrano into one of the tunnels. The riders don't like racing through the tunnels. There are plenty of them on this island too. A little breakaway group here trying to consolidate in the chase back as well.
Well, amazing as we came up to the top of the climb, it looked as it was very much all together there, but there is a small group starting to get off the front here, and as always Banesto have put a man in there, the Once rider who's managed to get in there as well to keep a member of the team there present to take the pressure off Laurent Jalabert. But this is interesting to note at this stage of the game that in fact a group of 6 riders managed to get clear.
Juan Carlos Vicario is the number 89 we caught a glimpse of there.
Pascal Hervé on the front of the main field. You can see just how tough these roads are around the island of Mallorca. Very difficult indeed, and a lot of work being done at the front by Pascal Hervé. They're obviously trying to set something up for a little later on for maybe the 1-2 attack by Richard Virenque and obviously Alex Zülle, the defending champion here at the Tour of Spain. But a marvellous backdrop here in the island of Mallorca for a great day of racing.
And they're putting on the style here too, as Pascal Hervé is keeping a lot of the pressure on today. He's a great climber. He won the stage of the Giro and has worn the pink jersey in that event. He turned professional very late on in life. As the tempo continues at a pace here, and Jimenez seems to have the answer to it all. He doesn't look at all stressed as he went to our camera there.
Again, the attack's coming thick and fast. This race keeps splitting up and coming back together again all of the time. A rider there from Cantina Tolo trying to get off the front, but you can see just how difficult on these roads it is to control. The man going away there, in fact, is Martin Havazja, a Slovenian rider who was picked up by Cantina Tolo in the early part of the season. A very strong rider has got across there to the rider from Kelme.
So Havazja and Rubira are the leaders. And Rubira seemingly in his element here now. You can hear the crowd shouting on. The big bunch seems to be steadily getting itself back onto terms here. This again is Rubira. He's determined not to be caught, and you know, if he keeps riding like this he might well snatch the race lead.
Well, if he can get over the top of Sola, it's a very good descent down to the flatlands on the outskirts of Palma, and then all he has to do then is survive to the finish line. But I think the main field's starting to take a serious interest in the chase behind him, and again it's the white jerseys of Banesto coming to the front, and riding a very solid role as leader is Jose Maria Jimenez in the yellow jersey.
But although the chasing, in fact, Ribeiro is pulling away at this moment, so he's still strong enough, and he could well be the race leader on the road now, and maybe Jimenez knows that, and he's going to want to get his boys into action. I wonder what Olano thinks about all the energy being expended here on behalf of Jimenez.
Well, that may well be a certain discussion that's going to take place over dinner tonight, but the important thing for a Spanish team is to keep the yellow jersey in the squad, and that's obviously why the riders have formed a good surround in supporting the lead. In fact, it looks as if Ribeiro's gone down.
He's gone down just as the bunch are picking up Bashir there. It looks as though he overshot that bend. He's got up pretty quickly and he's back into the rhythm. He was pushing it just that little bit too hard, I fear, as the main field now come up to the top of the climb. Jalabert getting more points for the King of the Mountains.
Certainly is, but I think that crash on the descent there, Phil, will take a little bit of wind out of the sails of Rubiera, because that always is a bit of a problem for a rider. When you go down, you don't have the nerves, and again another rider has gone down there on the descent. Everybody clutching at this race, trying to keep in control. As you can see, everybody taking risks on the descent.
This is turning out to be a shaky old tour here now. Jalabert with those points, by the way, is the new leader in the King of the Mountains. This man, though, is trying to steal the show and get the yellow jersey on his shoulders. There is signs now, though, that they are beginning to eat into his lead. So Ribeiro, that fall, as Paul Sherwin has said, may have taken the wind out of his sails.
10 kilometres left to go, and a lot of work done by the Banesto squad. They should leave it up to the other teams of the sprinters now, really, to try and chase down the leading rider from Kelme. They don't need to do too much work. work on these flat stages. With 3 kilometres left to go to the finish, I think it's all over for Rubiera.
He sat up, he sensed them coming, and they're going to wipe him out here now. He looks over the shoulder. Well, that's really sad, in fact. He was at one stage the new leader on the road. He's now been picked up. He'll have to race another day when this race continues into the mountains back on the mainland. But as they come up towards the line now, Guidi's going to get his second stage win. He's challenged there. I think it was Van Petegem on his side, but Guidi gets it. Van Petegem second, and Andre Schmil popped up there with third place. Overall, though, there is still no change at all. As good stage as it was for Guidi to win, it hasn't altered the overall classification, and now the riders staying on the island here for the Alcudia time trial. 40 kilometres this, Paul. Basically it's a flat course, and already after just a few days of racing the riders have done 1,500 kilometres.
A very tough recipe for the riders. That's a lot of racing to do, especially in these very hot and humid conditions. Out on the course though, the man who leads the Kelme squad, Fernando Escartin. What a consistent performer. He too now is trying to ride himself into the top 10 of this race.
Well, he wants a good performance here because he was pulled out of the Tour de France in protest over all that business of doping when he was lying fourth overall. He said he wasn't worried, but surely you must be when you're left out of a Tour in such a high position. Here's Alex Zülle trying to race himself back into the scene. This is where he made his mark early on in the Giro d'Italia this year. It became quite a tussle in the end, which he lost, but in the time trial, the first time trial, he was good, and he's looking good right now too. But in fact his times on the splits are not looking good because he's losing time to all of the stars, big time indeed, so perhaps his form has left him after the Tour de France debacle. And now this is Lance Armstrong. He is looking good.
He certainly is. His times at the moment of the splits are putting him well inside the top 10, and for a man who in 1996 was diagnosed with testicular cancer, this is an incredible comeback. I think one of the greatest comebacks in the sport. 3 Ks to the finish for Armstrong.
So Lance Armstrong fighting his way back into the big scene here, winner of the Tour of Luxembourg and the Rhineland Pfalz this year. As we now look here at Sergei Gonchar, he's the man they should all fear in the time trial because he rides so well in them. All of his victories coming in time trials of note, and he's the champion of the Ukraine as well.
It's an amazing guy to watch in a time trial. He doesn't look like a time trialist at all. He's not smooth, but he certainly is very strong. Now we're looking at another good time trialist. Uwe Peschel was third in the first ever World Time Trial Championships, and he's riding for the team sponsored by Estepona.
And so Peschel in the shot here, former East German rider and one of their best as well, now a full professional of course, and occasionally comes up with the rides but not all that often as a pro. Abraham Olano looking very, very smart indeed, and the splits are saying he's setting the best time too right now. So Olano is fighting himself back onto the scene here, not the last to start of course because that's down to the yellow jersey on his team, Jimenez, but Olano might be taking it.
He may well be. In fact, he's already caught Daniel Clavero and left him a long way behind, and the power and speed of Abraham Olano is unbelievable. It makes you think you're watching once again Miguel Indurain out on the roads of Spain.
Well, Olano is in, and it's going on the board as the best time for the 39.5 kilometres, 47 minutes and 7 seconds for Abraham Olano. Best time. Well, we're looking now at Laurent Jalabert, Paul, probably one of only 2 riders who might disturb the rhythm of Abraham Olano. Of course, the former world champion here in Jalabert, well, the current world champion actually, and riding very well.
Certainly has improved his time trialling ability, and what he's trying to do here is make sure that he can match the performance of Abraham Olano, who started a little further up the road than he did, because if Laurent Jalabert today can equal the kind of ride that Abraham Olano is trying to do, then he may well be the man who's going to put on the Mayo Amarillo later on this afternoon.
But even so, the time checks are putting him over a minute outside of the time of Olano, and it looks as though he really isn't quite firing as he has done in the past in the Vuelta. Maybe the happenings of this summer have really disturbed his rhythm. Unlikely to ride the World Championship as well because he's actually insulted some of the officials of the UCI.
It's also very difficult for Jalabert as well, because Jalabert is one of the few riders these days who actually races for the full season, starting right in competition early on. And look at that time, Phil. It's well off the leaderboard, outside that of Abraham Olano.
So a good minute plus as we watch here now the running of the yellow jersey. Jimenez last to start, and knowing that his teammate Olano more than likely will ride a time trial better than he, there seems to be no animosity in the team. In fact, to the contrary, these two Banesto riders have been enjoying throwing around the yellow jersey. But I wonder now if it will find the shoulders of Abraham Olano, because Jimenez is a mountain climber, and this his least particular form of cycle racing, I suspect.
Well, out on the course, he's lost an awful lot of time, Phil. In fact, he's lost minutes to his own teammate, Abraham Olano, who's going to run out the winner of this time trial.
So Olano is back on top, and that is something of a surprise, but he always uses the time trial. He's used it to very good advantage. He's got the jersey off his teammate Jimenez, and now let's have a look at the result. So Olano wins by 41 seconds from Melchior Maurer, the Once rider. Uwe Peschel getting third place there on the day, and fourth place Laurent Jalabert. This is the situation in the King of the Mountains, although there wasn't any today, but nevertheless Jalabert leads by 4 points from Francisco Cerezo, who was the leader in the King of the Mountains till Jalabert took over from him. And then in the sprints along the route, Giancarlo Raimondi is the leader here. Jalabert in the frame there second. Guidi, not surprisingly, up to third with 17 points in that. He's had 2 stage wins. And the overall, no it's not, this is the points competition. Jerome Blyleven's leading by 4 points from double stage winner Fabrizio Guidi. They've both picked up 2 stages so far. Abraham Olano is the yellow jersey, 41 seconds ahead of Jalabert. Maurer is third. Well, let's hope Jimenez has recovered on the rest day, which was yesterday. The rider's now going to the northeast corner of Spain, to Vic, for the big mountain stage of just on 200 kilometres, taking them now to the little principality of Andorra, right in the heart of the Pyrenees, which has seen so many great showdowns in world cycling with the Tour de France and, of course, the Tour of Spain. And we'll cut a course through the mountains and finish where the Tour de France has finished at Arcalís. And it's a tough climb, as we all know, Paul. And Jimenez, well, who's he going to fight? His own teammate, Olano?
It's going to be very difficult. 52 kilometres still to go to the finish line, and all of the riders worried about this stage, which the Spanish really like to call the Etapa Reina, the queen of stages, because it is so tough indeed. And already out on the course, a lot of these riders feel that they can put the new yellow jersey into difficulty, Abraham Olano, because Olano really doesn't climb as well as his former teammate Miguel Indurain.
Well, Francisco Cabello, of the former stage winner in the Tour de France and of the Kelme team, has been very active today. Now we're looking at Casino's Frederic Bessy here. And Casino, remember, on a high this year. They've had tremendous results, moved right up the top of the team classification in the world rankings, but he looks to be in a bit of bother here.
He certainly is. This is a very difficult course, and this is a part of the course that's used earlier in the season in the Tour of Catalonia, so a lot of these riders know this. And in fact, this is where a couple of years ago Chris Boardman, the British rider who was leading the Catalonia from the very first day, lost out here on the penultimate stage of that stage race. You can see here now that the Kelmes have obviously come up with a plan, Phil, because they've put as many riders as possible into this leading group.
Well, Cabello has been so active today. Munoz dropping away from the race as these two are trying to move on. Francisco Cerezo, Santiago Blanco. And there is the new Amarillo jersey of the Vuelta after that time trial, which was 2 days ago now. The riders coming off the island of Mallorca back here onto the mainland in lovely sunshine in Andorra. And Abraham Olano, I don't know whether he's concerned about the whereabouts of Jimenez or not, but Jimenez is the man to watch out for here in the Pyrenees.
Well, interesting to note, another attack there coming from the Kelme rider. Right on his wheel as he came out of that group there was his own teammate Fernando Escartin, who today is looking very good indeed and riding very close to Abraham Olano. And this obviously is their plan, to launch as many guys on the attack as possible. And I feel certain that once we get to the latter climbs, you'll see Escartin as well trying to leapfrog up to these guys and put the new Amarillo jersey into difficulty.
Well, news reaching us too that Festina have been weakened now by the abandon of Laurent Dufaux, second in this race and third in the last 2 years. And he's gone, I think, suffering low morale, as most of the Festina team are, after their eviction from the Tour de France with the Festina doping scandal that blew up. And this is Pascal Hervé, who was the leader in the King of the Mountains when the team was evicted. And funnily enough, the other King of the Mountains leader in the Tour, Rodolfo Massi, he's retired today, and he was the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France when he was evicted and sent down to jail.
It's been a very difficult day for a lot of riders. It always seems that riders have a hard time digesting a rest day, which what happened yesterday. And one man who's had a hard time early on in this stage, in fact, is Maurizio Fondrias, who's pulled out of the event as well. But it's good to see that the new Vitaligo Seguros team is putting some of their big boys up at the front, because Angel Luis Casero, who's the Spanish champion, is looking to try and do something, and they've got their top man Santiago Blanco on the attack right now.
and he really is the top man too. A big tussle for the right for him to ride for the team throughout the winter that went to court, but he's won the right and he looks to be a star of the future. At least the team thinks he will be. Banesto boys under pressure, yes, but they've got the firepower in these mountains to maybe put the situation to rights. There's still a fair way to ride and there's lots of climbing, and as you can see, the weather absolutely idyllic here in September for the Vuelta, which has profited from the move from its traditional date in the early year, and I think a lot better for it now. It's become a race in its own right.
Well, Casero going over the top there in second place, but still, Phil, despite the fact that I feel the Tour of Spain is a very well-placed race now at the end of the year in September, a lot of the riders still complaining about the fact that it is too late in the season, because a lot of riders are now just coming to the Tour of Spain as preparation for the World Championships, but it really does put a real good sting in the tail of a very long season.
Well, it looks as though Hervé's got a sting in his tail right now, because he's coming slowly back into the field. He's been away, and this is a very select little group that's now forcing themselves into the action here. Looking out for, of course, Jimenez and the yellow jersey of Olano. Olano is in this group, and it's quite a hefty little group of good climbers coming up as well.
It certainly is. Richard Virenque is riding very much to the front of that group, but I do have to think that the Banesto team has changed an awful lot since the retirement of Miguel Indurain. It seems as if a lot of the younger riders have been liberated because they are such a strong team now. It was always said that the Banesto team wasn't strong enough to support Miguel Indurain, but here they're always to the front in force and all riding very well to defend the leader, whether it be Jimenez or whether it be Abraham Olano.
As they continue on the climb of La Camela, here are the men setting the pace, and they look as though they've got themselves a good little tandem going here, nicely relaxed as they race towards the final climb.
Well, coming through to the front there, we've got Javier, who's helping out Casero Blanco exceptionally well here, but there's another Casino boy going right up the front there. He's decided now's a chance for him to try and get up there, because Casino certainly want to try and put some of their riders in. They've not had a great deal of success so far in the Tour of Spain, and for a team which is regarded as the #1 team in the world at the moment, they're launching Fabrice Gougeot off the front to get across to the leaders. 1 minute 17 back to the main field, and this is the descent that was used a little earlier in the year in the Tour de France when it came up here, well, last year I should say, and the descent was used in the Tour of Catalonia, so these riders know it very well. It's very tricky, and once they get down to the bottom of here, they'll go through Andorra la Vella, and then they'll be heading up towards the finish line in Arcalís.
And that climb starts, and it just keeps on going up and up. It's a great area to go cycling when you're not under pressure to win a big time stage race, that's for sure. There's the man who's just crossed the gap and strengthened the lead at the front, not noted at all, the young professional, as a great climber. And I think these boys here are doing just enough to keep in touch with the leaders, and they're waiting for the final run at the Arcalís.
Well, there's Jimenez on the left-hand side there. In fact, over the rest day, there's a few rumblings of a certain disagreement between Jimenez and Olano starting to come in, because for the moment, Olano has not re-signed his contract with Banesto, and in fact, his wife has started the negotiations with the team management, and she's trying to put a certain few clauses into that contract to make Olano the sole leader of the team. So there's a bit of friction coming there. It'll be interesting to see just how those two guys handle it today.
Well, there's #1, the winner last year, so emphatically so as well, and he looked to be on course to win the Giro d'Italia this year. Then it all went wrong for him. The Tour de France, of course, completely went wrong, and so a chance for Zola maybe to do something here. But he's on the wheel of his ex-teammate now, Laurent Jalabert. Always looks cool, Laurent, even when he is suffering, but I don't think he's having a good tour, not like the winner he has been of this race in the past.
Well, certainly it is a very long season for him. He had the white jersey on there as leader of the King of the Mountains competition, and he is at the moment still in second place in the overall standing, so he will certainly be keeping a very close eye on Abraham Olano. But there looks like one of the Kelme guys put it into reverse gear there, because he was out in the front obviously waiting for Escartin to launch an attack, but the Banesto guys here doing an excellent job on the front.
Well, the Serrano dropping back, an early attacker on the climb, but he's now looks as though he's hit the wall a little bit there, and he's still got the big one still to come as these three continue to head out now towards the final climb of the day. And it's a toughie. If you may remember, it was the springboard for Jan Ullrich when he passed Cedric Vasseur, who was the maillot jaune of the Tour de France 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, 2 races ago, and he went on to take the lead and win the Tour de France.
Now just cruising through the outside of Andorra la Vella. And these roads, although they're on the profile very flat, they're all slightly uphill until they get to the bottom of that road, which will take them out of the valley, then up towards the ski station at the top of Arcalís. And that is going to be where all of the big guns start to fire then, because now is when they really must ride for themselves. And it's going to be interesting to see after the rest day how Abraham Olano is going to handle this climb, because I have to say, as I've said several times during this Tour of Spain, he's not one of the greatest climbers, and he doesn't seem to be able to respond to the attacks and incessant accelerations of guys like this who are shooting off the front at the moment.
Luis Ricardo Mesa trying to get away now. They just love their mountains, these riders from Colombia and from Spain. And you see, the gap is nothing, Paul. There's the chase group just behind now, and Mesa trying to get across and reach them first.
Well, he certainly has opened up a gap to get across there in the main field, with all of the Banesto team on the front putting the pressure on, have nailed down this group very quickly indeed. At one moment ago it was 1 minute 17, and I would say it's well under 30 seconds at the moment, but still everybody trying to get an advantage of 10 or 20 seconds before they turn off onto the very steep slopes of the early part of this climb, because it is such chaos in the main field when you get to this climb, because it is very narrow indeed, and if you can get there in the first 10 places, then it's a lot easier than fighting in the last 20.
Well, Cerezo was the rider passing through our camera lens there. They're all getting up there now, one by one. Mesa also trying to get up there. He's got a teammate up here as well, Fernandez, Federico Fernandez. So there's going to be two of the riders from the Avianca team, and none of the big stars yet. They're all allowing the, should we call them, the little fish to run, and before they make their move, because they know the finish is so tough. And it's a fair length at 200 kilometers. Here's the situation. There's the leaders on the left of the picture, the chasers on the right, and down below is the climb they're actually on. The clever technology we have these days.
Well, the three guys in the middle there trying to get across are part of that very small Colombian team which has come across to take part in the Tour of Spain, the Avianca Telcom team. A team, in fact, that Alvaro Mejia, who finished 4th in the Tour de France a few years ago, has now actually signed up to race for again. So they feel today is certainly a day that will suit the Colombians, because they are still regarded as some of the best climbers in the world, but a big power on at the front here. In fact, and Jimenez has got across to mark an attack that's going clear again by one of the Kelme riders.
Well, the three leaders are Serrano, Blanco and Gougeot, and it wasn't Serrano that we saw get caught early. It was in fact Francisco Cabello who hit the wall and dropped out of it. He was the man who started all of the action today. Clearly the man they decided for Kelme was to go out and loosen everybody up. He's lasted as long as he could, and he's paved the way for Serrano to get into this lead group. Their big man, of course, Escartime, we haven't seen him yet, but he is in that chase group. And there's another man trying to get across here right now, so the Kelme boys are now beginning to fire.
Now this is going to be interesting to see what the reaction will be of Abraham Olano, because Jimenez himself has come across here to match this chasing group, and he's got right across to the front group of 3 riders, making 5 men at the head of affairs. And you can see, in fact, 3 Banestos on front of the main field, just keeping Abraham Olano in 4th place there. So the pressure now is on the Banesto boys to try and keep the yellow jersey.
Well, this is a serious move, and the reason Jimenez has responded is because that's Roberto Heras from Kelme, who's right up in the overall rankings and clearly enjoying his tour here. He's not a big name in cycling, but he always rides well in the Vuelta.
He certainly does. A big revelation last year when he won one of the stages on the Vuelta España, and I think a lot of panic now starting to come into the Banesto boys. It's the first time that they've really been put under pressure in the Tour of Spain so far, and obviously on one of the toughest stages. There's the composition of that group: Jimenez, Heras, Blanco, Gougeot and Serrano. But the most important thing for Abraham Olano is probably the presence of his own teammates in that group.
That's incredible. 5th overall last year, Heras, by the way, and now that's why Jimenez has come. And interesting, but Olano hasn't made any resistance here. He's just riding along behind his team. And also here is Laurent Jalabert. There's the first time gap between what is now a very serious breakaway. It's only 21 seconds, but the roads now are going to be just grind, grind and grind.
Well, Olano riding sensibly. He hasn't got to the steepest narrow part of this climb yet, so he's holding back and letting his teammates do all the pacemaking at the front. Laurent Jalabert in the white jersey, very comfortable on his shoulder, and he will wait until he gets to the bottom of the climb. Then he'll have to take over the pacemaking himself, because certainly his teammates will disappear. But this is a great tactical move, Phil, by the Kelme squad, and I think they're one of the best squads in the sport when it comes to mountain climbing. And tactically, they've put a man up there now to put the yellow jersey into difficulty. But look at the ease of Jose Maria Jimenez. He's just sitting there letting everybody else set the pace, and he himself is taking advantage of this move.
He looks really good today, and he's nicely thinned down here. Just sitting on the back here is Casablanco, Colombian rider.
Another Colombian rider from Avianca. Yeah, he wasn't there before.
No.
He's obviously leapt across it up. Now this is important because in fact Escartin is going. Everybody is throwing it down at Abraham Olano, and he hasn't responded to that attack either. This man is incredible. He looks like a crab on a bike. He gets right down there, gets his elbows out, but once the road goes uphill, he certainly can move.
But the thing is, these guys are all sprinting off this lead group. They're all anxious to join that breakaway, which is dangling right in front of them like a huge attraction to a donkey, and yet Olano is watching and doing absolutely nothing. And I'm wondering if he's having something of a bad day, because I would have thought by now he might have tried to go with Escartin, and you know, he doesn't actually ride that well in the Pyrenees.
He certainly doesn't. He hasn't got the acceleration to get across these gaps like the pure climbers have. He has to ride with a big gear. He has to get into his own rhythm, and he's using his teammates at the moment. Another man trying to launch the attack on Abraham Olano here is Alex Zuller, who's been joined immediately by Laurent Jalabert. So they've obviously kept an eye on how Abraham Olano is looking, and looking at that, Phil, he's not going too well.
He's suffering, and I think also Jalabert isn't looking so good. He's another man who doesn't like the Pyrenees, Laurent Jalabert. He's a middle-of-the-road climber, but as he's shown in the past, he does love the Tour of Spain, and he's got to the front now. He's realised that he's got to do something. The onset of nobody up there, at least of all Jalabert, so it's down to the team leader to see what he can do, because the Spanish and Colombian climbers have decided today is their big day. They're all saying this is the toughest stage of the Vuelta this year, and they're going to make something of it.
Well, this is Odriozola on the front there, trying to help out Abraham Olano. Beltran was in second position there, and this race is all in a handkerchief at the moment. You can see the group here with Escartin coming in, and again Escartin has got a Kelme teammate with him, so we're going to have 3 Kelme riders at the front of this race very shortly, and that will give them a very serious attempt at taking over the lead in the team classification. But Jimenez controlling everybody on the front here, Phil. This is the steepest part of the climb here, not far away from where, in fact, a couple of years ago we saw Jan Ullrich blow everybody off his wheel. Jimenez is just sitting there in the group and letting everybody else do the pacemaking.
Well, after the time trial, the Once boys grabbed the team lead away from Benesto. It was held for a day before that by Lotto. But just looking around the group here, Benesto are about to get it back, or Kelme, because they're both well up with men. Once look a bit thin on the ground.
They certainly do. Laurent Jalabert, I think, very happy just to be in that group with Abraham Olano, and I reckon he's going to mark Olano later on this climb and use the big Spaniard, who climbs very steadily indeed on these climbs here. But the serious move now certainly coming from Kelme. A shout there coming from Escartin to his teammate. Come on, let's keep the pressure on. We've got the Benesto boys just exactly where we want them, and look at that. He's blown his own teammates away.
It's a beautiful day for a bike race, and the Kelme boys are saying it's a beautiful day for a big attack here. There's Escartin in 4th in the Tour de France till he was forced to go home after all the problems surrounding the Tour, and now obviously going to make amends in the Tour of Spain.
I do feel sorry for Escartin, because he was actually drawn into the abandonment of all the Spanish teams by a kind of pressure from the general public in Spain. It was an overnight telephone call-in that the Spanish teams organised with the local Spanish people there, and they recommended that all of the Spanish teams should pull out en bloc, and I reckon that Escartin is going to regret that decision for a couple of years to come.
Although he says he doesn't, he must, because you can't ride so well in the best bike race in the world and not come good. This looks like it's Niki Ebersold from the Swiss team trying to make a bit of progress.
Abraham Olano now still using his teammates very sensibly indeed. On the front there, Odriozola, followed by Beltran. Beltran, a very good climber indeed, and one of the French riders, that was Bessie, who's going to go shooting out of the back there.
No, it's Gougeot, in fact, Paul. He's cracked. He was in the front group, but he's gone. He went across there well enough at the bottom, but the climb has gone on a little bit too much for him, and the Spanish and Colombian climbers have hurt him too much and pushed him out of it. But this the race here now is just one big survival, and anybody that wants to could get across that gap, but only if they've got the legs, and it looks to me as though Olano might be on the back burner here.
I think he is on the back burner. He's leaving his teammates to do the work. One of the Colombian riders from Avianca Telcom coming back from that leading group. Sensibly though, you can see that Olano is not panicking at all. He's letting his teammates do the work as much as he can. The idea of being a good leader of a race like this is to make sure you use your teammates till the last possible moment, but that gap to the leaders is actually starting to increase quite a bit.
Yeah, but the big thing about top bike riders, they know their ability and the limits of their ability, and somebody like Olano is going to allow these riders to have their moment and will not overtax himself, because if you hit the wall by overshooting your mark, then you're going to lose big time. At the moment, he might only lose a minute or so because he's riding very, very sensibly here.
Jose Maria Jimenez there, just sitting at the back, riding an excellent race here. He's a guy who I thought would have done better in the Tour de France this year, but obviously didn't do quite so well. Virenque now deciding that everybody is leaving Olano behind, and he's going to have a go at trying to put, in fact it's not, it's Hervé once again. Well, that's a big surprise. These guys, they all had their hair dyed just before the Tour de France, and they all look the same now.
I think Virenque's has grown out, it's back to black again, but anyway, Hervé's kept his. We're on the Montorp now, first category stepping stone to the final climb, and again the decisions are being made. This is another beautiful climb here.
It certainly is. It's okay to watch, but I tell you one thing, I wouldn't like to be out there riding today because the pressure is certainly on. Hervé is digging in again, trying to put Abraham Olano into pressure. There's Virenque in third position there, slipping back down the line, and now the attacks are coming from the big guys from the Mapei squad, because they certainly are looking for something out of this tour. This is Oscar Kamenzin, no longer in his Swiss national champions jersey, but he too is looking for a good performance.
Yeah, that national champion now is Ebersol, we caught a glimpse of. He's disappeared. I think he's back in this group somewhere. But Kamenzin now pushing on. They're nipping across as best they can. And the Cofidis boys on the defensive here as well. Without Bobby Julich, of course, after his marvellous Tour de France. But Bobby in the past, I think in fact really he first came to our notice in a Tour of Spain when he was so good.
It certainly was. In fact, he took the King of the Mountains competition early on in the Tour of Spain a couple of years ago and held on to it for 10 days, and everybody said, this guy is pretty good, and he was signed up and transferred across to the Cofidis team, where really this year's Tour de France proved that he is a magnificent rider, and an American rider we'll see an awful lot more of in the future.
Kamenzin been picked up by Zuller. Zuller's had to make some sort of decision here and see what he can do. He doesn't look great, but he's going to give it a go, as all great riders do. And joining there, Clavero of Spain. Wow, now all of a sudden this group is getting a little bit thin and short of teammates for Olano. He's only got one left.
He's only got one left, and he'll use him for as long as possible, and once he fades away from the front of that group, then what's going to happen is Abraham Olano will have to take up the pacemaking himself. Alex Zuller now seems to be getting across the gap. He's riding well, but it's very difficult. You can see the pain on his face, and this is certainly a very difficult stage, especially with the heat over this part of Spain at the moment. It's very hot indeed in September, 32 degrees Celsius on the thermometer this afternoon, and Zuller is digging deep trying to get across the gap, and he knows Abraham Olano further down the road is in serious difficulty.
There's a lot of individuals living in their own private world of pain here at the moment. Zuller has made an effort, but I think he's not going to get on, and there's the answer to that. He almost made it, and the legs have gone. Escartine will be very pleased to know he's cracked Alex Zuller here, because he is keeping the pressure on. And these sort of climbs, which don't look steep, but they just hurt the legs all the way. You can see a long way ahead, and it is a very difficult mountain to climb.
Kamenzin there on the front setting the pace, and the guy right behind him is Daniel Clavero, who's pulled his jersey up just to try and keep a little bit of cool air coming through there, but Alex Zuller didn't go anywhere at all. He got 100 or 200 meters in front of this group, and he just reached his maximum speed, and they've pulled him back into the fold.
Well, the old form just not there for Alex Zuller, and Olano will be pleased to see him come back. He'll know now he's not going as well as he usually goes. Last year's winner back in the pack. Olano continuing to limit his losses here and looks okay. There's the differences now. 36 seconds the leaders back to the chase group. 13 seconds the chasers are just ahead of Zuller and Olano. These are the leaders now, and Jimenez and Escartine, two brilliant pure climbers, now free as birds at the front of the race, and they might make ground here.
Well, Escartine's not going to get any help at all from Jimenez, who's sitting in second position there, riding sensibly. You see, just getting into his back pocket there, throwing the food away there, making sure that he's as light as possible for the last part of this climb. And Jimenez has got to ride all on the back wheel of the man in front, because he for the moment is riding the role of a domestique.
A main chase group here with Roberto Heras also going to accelerate up the overall classification again as he makes a little pace at the back, but he probably won't chase too hard now because Escartine, the team captain, is up front. And let's see, no, you see, he won't help anybody. He's just riding third wheel, keeping an eye on the world. It's a lovely position to be in. You can follow wheels and nobody can complain.
25 kilometers to go, and still everybody within 1 minute of each other. You can see the leading group of 2 riders still 35 seconds ahead of the chasers, and still only around about a quarter of a minute separating them from the main group here, with Abraham Olano, Virenque and obviously Alex Zülle.
Well, a little bit of false flat for the chase group in the bottom picture, but as you can see, they'll be on the climb again very shortly. And well, Olano just allowing it all to happen around him at the moment. Now these are the kilometers per hour of each moto. Moto 1 follows the leaders, Moto 2 the chasers, and Moto 3 is with the Olano group.
Coming over the top of the climb there, Jimenez just pops by Escartin to take maximum points in the King of the Mountains. Thank you very much, I'll have that one. And he'll resume his place up in second behind the attack that's coming from Fernando Escartin. The group behind, though, is now looking very serious indeed, with a lot of work being done at the front by Clavero. Oscar Kamenzin very happy now to sit in second position, and obviously the Kelme rider there in third won't do anything at all to help, because his man, the #1 man on their squad, is out on the attack trying to get himself a victory in the Tour of Spain. He's always been very consistent when it comes to these big 3-week stage races, but he's never managed to pull off the big win.
Well, Laurent Jalabert, by the way, is the current leader this morning in the King of the Mountains, but the way it's going right now, Jimenez at least could be pulling on that white jersey tonight.
Well, Phil, there's Lance Armstrong as well. He's very much to the front in this group, having a fantastic Tour of Spain there. He's up in around 6th position, so obviously riding very comfortably. And this guy, I think, is surprising everybody in the Tour of Spain. Okay, he rode well on the flat stages. He won the Tour of Luxembourg this year, but to be riding at the front on a tough mountain stage like this is remarkable.
It means he knows how he's feeling, and he must be feeling good, because this is a tough stage today. The weather conditions in everybody's favour, I think. But even so, Olano here, not making any effort to slip away. He knows his limitations. He's just freewheeling at the front of the group. And he's a pretty good descender anyway, but at least this way he sees where he's going, and these roads are made for fast descents.
Certainly are. He's right down there in the tuck position. This rather a difficult and dangerous position to adopt, because you lose a certain amount of agility on the machine, but it does get you down as low as possible. And in fact, that little descent there has brought him up to the group that was right in the middle. He's closed 13 seconds in no time at all. But you can be pretty certain that Lance Armstrong won't be too far behind, because he too is an excellent descender.
Well, there's Jimenez getting the 16 points in the King of the Mountains. No score at all for Laurent Jalabert, so we have a new leader for sure now. The Benesto boy riding well, and the way they're riding, they could be in the lead with Olano or Jimenez in the yellow. The King of the Mountains and the team race by the end of this day, if it all goes well. But the Kelme team have been the team of the day for us.
Well, this is the same descent again that has been used on the Tour de France in the past. A very tricky descent now. They'll drop down into the bottom of the valley, and then they will start the final climb up to the ski station at Arcalís. Jimenez sitting in second position there, forcing Escartin to lead around the corners, and you can see Escartin is not a fantastic descender here. He's not using the best lines around these very steep hairpin corners, and he's losing certain amounts of time. There's Armstrong, we can see him now. He's come across to Abraham Olano, and you know, I have to say, Lance must be surprising even himself, because I spoke to him, Phil, just before the Tour of Spain, and he said, I'm only going to use the Tour of Spain for training for the World Championships. That's where I really want to show this year. But I tell you what, I think he's riding himself right up into a very high position in the overall standings.
Well, he's right there now. Here we are, about to start the climb of the Arcalís. Difficult corner here, coming off one mountain pass and crossing the valley and into another one. These are the leaders, one man doing no work, so if they're still together at the top, I'm sure that Jimenez will win the stage, because he's just sat there and let Escartin do all of the pacemaking. He's played the perfect teammate. He looks like he's got his communications working now, and he can't hear properly.
Okay, boss, what do I do now? I'm at the front of the race. I'm right behind Escartin. What's happening with Olano? I really don't know what to do. He really is a good lieutenant, because at the moment this guy could be riding himself back into the Amarillo jersey, but he's still taking the time to talk to his team manager and say, look, Abraham Olano is the leader. What am I supposed to do here with Escartin? I don't know if I can stay with him on the climb. Shall I just sit here, or shall I drop back to the main group?
Well, he's having trouble getting through, I think, as he tries to listen to what he's saying, and now he's put his hand up and said, I can't hear, how about a drink?
It's the most important thing on these big mountain stages, when you get to the flat sections in between the climb, to keep yourself topped up. He hasn't got any bottles on there at all. There's a quick glimpse of Armstrong. No more teammates left in this group for Abraham Olano, so what he has to do now is keep a nice steady pace going on the flat section, make sure he doesn't lose too much time over the next few kilometers. With 10 kilometers remaining, it's all up to him now to set the pace on the front.
Well, Escartine still doing the riding. I think probably Jimenez has been told that now that Olano has made his move to try and cross the gap, and he's coming across with Lance Armstrong, that there's the group that they all left, which still contains Alex Zülle, I think.
Escartine doing all of the pacemaking on the front for himself. He won't get any help at all until the latter part of this climb. Still trying to get across. That small group of riders now has changed. The Vitaligo Seguros rider in there looks very much like Zinchenko, and not a man renowned for the big mountain passes. But you can see that group of Abraham Olano swelled a bit, Phil. Certain riders have obviously taken a few risks on the descent.
Yeah, which surprises me. The climb didn't do a great deal. There is the climb now up to the finish, the Arcolis, the Estacio de Pal, and it's a long, hard climb to a height of nearly 2,000 metres, which is well in excess of 6,000 feet, and it's pretty steep.
It certainly is a very difficult climb after 200 kilometres in the saddle, because this today will be at nearly a 6.5 hour stage over this kind of terrain. And there you can see moving himself up into second position. Recovery there by one of his teammates who's come up to help him, Abraham Olano, still under pressure from Fernando Escartine, getting advice here from Alvaro Pino, a very good rider himself in the old days, now knows exactly how to try and encourage his rider at a stage like this.
1 minute and 4 seconds, so there's a good sign of resistance coming from the back, and that sort of time gap, thanks to the time trial, means there should be no change overall if it stays around that gap, and Olano will keep his Amarillo jersey. But Escartine obviously regaining time lost, and he's trying to be a challenger in this tour as the days continue. He's riding superbly. He's not even going to bother to waste his breath asking Jimenez to come through and help him, because he knows he won't. He's just going to get on with the job and hope that he can get some time on this group here.
Olano still not looking comfortable on these climbs, Phil. You can see he's always getting out of the saddle, rocking the top part of his body, trying to just get the gears going over. 5 kilometres remaining though for the two leaders, and Escartine knows now that he really has to ride, and Jimenez dropping off the back a little bit of the wheel of the leading Spaniard here, and this is a face of a man really possessed. He knows what he has to do. He has to get as much time as possible between himself and Abraham Olano, because when it comes down to the penultimate time trial, he needs to have a big buffer over the Spanish time trial champion.
Well, 9 kilometres an hour they're climbing at, just over 5 miles an hour. Looks a bit quicker than that, I must say, but it just gives you some idea how steep these slopes are. Each time we get a glimpse back, which has been sort of reformed at the back there with Olano now, it's always Beltran who is doing the work for Olano. He's an absolutely superb teammate, and I reckon he's probably the domestique of the season, really, the way he looks after Abraham Olano.
Now again, pressure coming on Olano because his Banesto teammate has been blown away there. Jalabert coming to the front. Jalabert actually not looking too bad on this stage. It looks like he's recovered somewhat, and he's putting the pressure on here, followed by Kamenzin. So they're trying to once again put Abraham Olano into serious difficulty. Kamenzin taking over, and it looks as if Olano's moving back a little bit.
Well, it's good to see they're still trying, and of course these attacks and counter-attacks after over 5 hours in the saddle is going to reduce that attack by the two Spaniards up front. And here the chasers are now caught. That'll be Heras who's coming back into the fold. That's a shame for him, because his chance of a high overall position is obviously now going to be a little bit damaged, but he's back in the bunch, which means we've only got the two riders of significant note up front now.
Certainly that's the situation. Abraham Olano looking to be in serious difficulty there. On his shoulder, wearing number 1, last year's winner, Alex Zülle, riding a tempo. He hasn't got the power there, and there is Armstrong switching over, keeping an eye on Abraham Olano just to see how well the big Spanish rider is performing this afternoon. Armstrong, I would think, will be so surprised to see himself here with this kind of rider on the big mountain passes, because in the past his performance in the big mountains at the Tour de France have not been magnificent and have not proved that he would be a great climber. But climbing the way he is today, he obviously has changed an awful lot over these last couple of years since he had that diagnosis of cancer.
Well, if he holds this lot today, he's going to be in the top 6, I would think, overall, and that's not bad for a man who only came to ride the Tour and hopefully finish it. He's right in the thick of it on a really important day today. These are the strong men of this year's Vuelta, and the Amarillo jersey is fighting himself back into the fray, continually closing the gaps. I think it is largely Laurent Jalabert who's hurting them, and he's trying to break away, but he's not getting clear at all, as this group, with the pain on all of their faces, And even though he seems to be losing his white jersey as King of the Mountains today to Jimenez, he is always at or near the front, and the attack's going again.
Kamens in once again, the former Swiss champion, getting off the front there. He's having a magnificent race here. He really does seem to have the form which has been avoiding him all season. Now he's coming right into form at the end of the year. 3 kilometres to go and Jimenez has gone for it.
Well, good for him, and I think he must have been given the all clear then. He knows that the gap is staying pretty much around a minute behind. If he's going to win, he's got to win alone, but there's a lot of fight still left in Escartine. He must have expected this attack at some stage as we race up towards the finishing line. It's 3 kilometres to go now, approximately. Now we can see everybody. There's Armstrong on the left-hand side, still with them. The race, though, has split all over the mountain now in what has become a desperate scrabble for the line, and there's going to be time gaps between them all, I think.
Jimenez has gone again there. Escartine obviously reacted there with anger.
Must be it, Paul, this time, surely. Oh, he's coming back.
I tell you, Escartine is such a courageous rider. He's all over his machine there. He knew the attacks were going to come, but this time he can't respond.
Well, he's bound to have expected that. He was never going to win this stage, but it looks as though Jimenez is going to win this stage. I don't think the time gaps will be anything like enough today because of time lost in the time trial to reclaim the Banesto personal Amarillo jersey they're throwing around at the moment. But even so, I think Alon will be pretty happy they've got a stage win of this quality.
Well, you can see there Jimenez has got a definite advantage over his former companion in that breakaway, Escartine, and Laurent Jalabert is still at the front of the second group on the road, trying to put Abraham Olano into difficulty. And you can see Olano in the bottom left-hand side, thanks to our technology here, is just off the back of that group.
Well, there's the face of Jimenez. He's in the barrier line now, so he's not far from the summit. 15th he slipped away to after the time trial, a long drop, but it was only a few seconds, covering a lot of people. And now he's trying to damage them all and climb back into a serious position in the overall classification. And Banesto having it all their own way today. They're going to take the lead in the team race. I think they've got the lead in the King of the Mountains and still will keep the leader in the race, whatever happens now.
It looks like everybody's riding an individual time trial here. Jimenez is out on the road on his own in front. He's being chased by Escartine, and further down the slopes Abraham Olano has no teammates with him at all, and he's trying to just limit his losses. But he's come now into the group of Jalabert. A great ride by Olano because he keeps getting dropped every time there's an acceleration, doesn't panic and just rides himself slowly back up to the others.
Well, it's a brilliant piece of riding by this man. The way, I mean, he's obviously had a bad day and he's struggled, and he really hasn't lost much at all, and this is a hard day for him.
He's not looking good at all. His shoulders have dropped down a bit. He doesn't look the proud Spanish rider that he normally is. He's just suffering. He's really going through all kinds of hell on the slopes of this climb here, but he knows he has to keep with these guys and make sure that he doesn't lose too much time, and that's why he's pushing himself further and further into the depths of despair.
Steady climbing then by Jimenez, knowing and feeling great because he's heading up towards the win, and this will be a superb performance for him. Just keeps keeping his rhythm. He's on the top chain wheel there, can you believe, now, as he tries to come up towards the finish.
Huge power there. He's looking at the 1 kilometre to go barrier across the road there, knowing now that he hasn't got too much further to go, and he'll be pushed on a little further by that. He knows that he's had the advantage of sitting behind Escartine as the policeman for Banesto for a long time now, and he'll be spurred on towards the finish. His advantage around about 20 seconds over Escartine, but you can see the difference down to the group of Olano is 1 minute and 14 seconds. So this man Jimenez is riding himself back up into the overall standings after losing a lot of time a couple of days ago in that time trial.
Well, he's recouping approximately half of what he lost, so that's going to bring him right up the overall classification again. And we've still another day in the Pyrenees tomorrow before the race moves on, and so there's plenty of more chance here for Jimenez to gain more time. And tonight around the dinner table, obviously Olano's going to say, I was feeling a bit rough. Jimenez had no choice but to do what he did because he was a perfect team man. He went with the attack. He didn't do any helping of that escape, and he's clearly been given the all clear by the team to go and try and win the stage, which he's doing. So if he got the lead, nobody could blame him. He's never attacked Olano, that's for sure.
He rode perfectly, a perfect gentleman, a perfect teammate. He did exactly what he was expected to do. He covered the aggressive moves by Escartine in the Kelme boys, and now once he could see Escartine was failing, he leapt away, and he's looking like a very good winner this afternoon.
He certainly is. Almost 5.5 hours in the saddle across the Pyrenees today. Well, the last time he won the stage earlier on in this tour, he claimed the Amarillo jersey. I don't think he'll do that this time, but he'll certainly be becoming a challenger again. Kisses to the crowd, stage win number 2. What a great tour this man is having. And there is the hero of the day. The Kelme came into the Pyrenees with a real plan. They used all of their climbers. They started off by sacrificing Cabello, and then Serrano, then Heras, and finally Escartine. He couldn't quite handle the team tactics of Banesto, but he gets second.
Fantastic performance. The press going wild here because they can see now that Jimenez is confirming the fantastic rider that he showed he was able to be last year in the Tour de France, and this year he really is confirming. Here's the group coming in now, just down the road there with Abraham Olano. The time is going to be important.
Well, the rider's coming up towards the line. This is Heras, who will get third. Good ride by him. He was in trouble halfway up. And Camazin takes 4th place. And the main field, Clavero was there in 5th, and Jalabert was around 6th or 7th. So the group are in. And the time gap, not that critical, I don't think. And there's no doubt now that, in fact, Olano will keep his leader's Amarillo jersey. Here comes Lance Armstrong, and the clock's saying just over 2 minutes, but remember that's on the winner, and he's still very much in touch. He'll climb up the overall classification today, and well, he might too.
Well, the reference there, Phil, in fact, is that he came across the line there with Pascal Hervé and Richard Virenque, so he's climbing with the best of them.
Absolutely. He's going to go home tonight feeling great, which is just as well because we're back in the mountains again tomorrow. There's a look again at the man who's the star of the moment, Jose Maria Jimenez. And he's climbed up the overall classification now into the top, I would make it into the top 4 riders. And there is the result: Escartine, Heras, Camazin and Clavero, as I gave it to you. And the maillot, and he said the maillot jaune, but the Amarillo jersey still on the shoulders of Abraham Olano to fight another day in the Pyrenees. And that's exactly what he's got to do, because this one, stage 11, 200 kilometres, leaving Andorra right up towards the French frontier at Amprieu. And this is a tough one. If there's any good news, Paul, it's at the end of the Pal ski station, which is a terrific climb of 14 kilometres. Apparently it's been reduced to a mere 5 because of bad road surfaces, so I don't think Olano will be complaining about that. Overnight he has said he had a terrible day in the Pyrenees yesterday. Well, let's hope he has a better one today. Very often you don't get 2 bad days.
Well, especially when you're a big specialist at the 3-week races like that, but you can see this race has no flat sections at all as it creeps all the way through the Pyrenees to come up to finish in Serlaire, which is a very difficult finishing climb as well. You know, Olano today, again, I think will be put under pressure once they leave here, the city of Andorra la Vella, because yesterday the Kelme riders rode magnificently.
Well, there are the climbs, and as I say, one of the climbs at the end reduced slightly because of bad road surface. A quick reminder of the overall situation as we catch up with the action on the road. Olano starts the day 41 seconds ahead of Laurent Jalabert, a minute 10 on Escartine now. 4th is actually Jimenez at 1:36, and 5th is Gonzalez at 2:06, and Lance Armstrong is now in the frame, 2 minutes off in 6th place. That's brilliant.
That is a fantastic performance by Lance Armstrong, and I think he's getting more confident as the days go by. He just wanted to ride this event for preparation for the World Championships, but you can see riding and accompanying men like Richard Virenque in the mountains just goes to show that Armstrong has seriously improved. I feel that he's changed his body shape a little bit during the last couple of years as well, because he's lost an awful lot of weight, which is probably why he's becoming somewhat of a climber.
Well, we're looking here at the men who have started the action day, Ribeiro from Kelme and Vicario, and again the tactics have been very similar. Kelme have started using men very early on to try and break up the main field, and once more, Paul, that's having an effect.
It certainly is, and again it's putting Banesto under pressure. They've got to send the boys to the front, and this again has been a very difficult stage because the group of Abraham Olano has immediately been reduced to around about 25 riders. But Kelme are so consistent on these mountain stages. They're always putting 3 or 4 guys up the road in the front trying to put the pressure on. This is Rubiera, who is getting information from his team manager there, and we can see with just around about 25 kilometres left to go that there is a big armada of Banesto guys in that group with Olano. And now today wearing the white jersey as leader of the King of the Mountains is Jose Maria Jimenez.
That's right, and it did work out for Banesto too. They are the team leaders as well, King of the Mountains and race lead at the moment, so they're having a terrific tour. And you know, just after Miguel Indurain retires, along comes people like Jimenez and Olano to pick up the bits, and that is quite amazing for Spain.
Well, Spanish cycling certainly has bounced back. 10 kilometres remaining now for the leaders and their advantage. Just over 1 minute back to the main group. But Banesto looking stronger and stronger as the days go by. They're riding a very solid Tour of Spain here. They are becoming one of the top stage race teams in the world. No panic at all. They all come to the front and they just sacrifice themselves for the two guys who they know now can take over when the mountains come, Olano and Jose Maria Jimenez.
Ribeiro getting word from his manager here about the state of play. Inside 6 miles to go to the finish. He's still riding well. There he is, 12th overall, looking for 3 minutes 13 seconds. And don't think he'll get that, because looking back at Banesto today, they're looking a much better team, well organised. Here they are, and there is Jimenez now, still playing in the Super Domestique, sitting on the back wheel of the Amarillo jersey. These two are now down to 7 kilometres from this, what will shortly be the summit of the last climb, and the gap a mere 58 seconds. So there'll be no Amarillo jersey waiting for Ribeiro, but somebody I would think will try to get away from this group, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least if it wasn't another Kelme rider.
Well, that's been their plan all along now. This looks like Jalabert back in his own Once jersey now, trying to go out of the front. A little bit too early, I think, because the climb is still a couple of kilometres up the road. 41 seconds, so the gap to the leaders starting to come down. Rubiera very happy, I think, at the front there with the help that he's getting from Vicario, but certainly, again, Kelme trying to set it up for some kind of attack, I think, once again by Escartin, who put everybody into difficulty yesterday, apart from one man, Jose Maria Jimenez, who's turning out to be the strong man of this year's Tour of Spain.
Well, Jalabert's tried, but I don't think he's going anywhere. He's going to come back in the bunch. A little bit of picture wobble, so don't adjust your tellies as the race regroups here. Quite a big bunch there, Paul. It's indicating it's not been that tough a day.
Well, Vicario's had a tough day because he can't stay on the back wheel of Rubiera, who's decided now is the time to go out alone, and he's up the road now, trying to open up the gap, and certainly hoping that one of his teammates will come up as they have done in the past, because yesterday's performance on the climb up to Arcolis was a magnificent tactical performance by Kelme, who are closing the gap in on the Banesto domination of this year's Tour.
Well, the climb starts now, but luckily for these riders it's not 14 kilometres, it's around about 4 kilometres left to go up to the finish, maybe slightly more, but it's all uphill anyway. It's a pity about the rough roads, but as I say, some riders will be upset about it, men like Escartin, who would like to get to grips and try and break Olano, but Olano certainly won't be complaining. He's thinking more of the time trials to finish this Vuelta and try and get the win, and he's going to have to watch out for Jimenez as well, I think.
Beltran moving to the front there for Banesto, but look at the style and ease of which Jose Maria Jimenez reacts to any attacks at all.
There was almost one there, did you see it? He almost went and decided, no, I'm not going to go now, and they all sat up again.
Well, he was so quick to see any kind of a move by any of the Kelme riders, and Jimenez is straight on his wheel. He's looking for the openings. I think he wants to be the policeman and not attack his own teammate, but to go with all the moves that might get clear.
I think it was Gutierrez who tried that one. It could have been Escartin. Anyway, we're still back with the race, which is on the climb now. The crowd watching the Vuelta España come up.
It's amazing. 3 kilometres here. You look at this backdrop that we're getting this afternoon, and it reminds you of a lot of the old westerns that Clint Eastwood used to make many years ago, because this part of Spain is very much devoid of an awful lot of habitation, because it really is a magnificent area to come and visit. The French champion there, Jalabert, slipping back down the line a bit.
A lot of the westerns actually were shot in Spain, even though they purported to be sections of North America. Anyway, back to the Vuelta. The pressure is on. Olano will feel reasonably happy here. Lance Armstrong is. Look at him moving back into the action.
Armstrong looking very comfortable indeed, sitting well up on his machine, getting as much oxygen into his lungs as possible. But he must feel very confident now, riding up alongside some of these top riders in the world who've put in a full season, because Lance Armstrong's season has really been a little bit sporadic. He started off very well early in the season with the Ruta del Sol and went on to the Tour of the Mediterranean, but after that he disappeared from Paris-Nice and then came back again later in the year with a great victory in the Tour of Luxembourg. But now he seems to me to be riding himself into some magnificent form here in the Tour of Spain.
Well, there's Olano. We caught a glimpse of Beltran. I think he was in the spot of bother there, but now Olano still gritting his teeth, coming up towards 2 kilometres to go to the finish, and so he's not going to lose that Amarillo jersey. The Kelme boys have been delivering quite a few blows, but at the end of the day they're not getting very far.
And again, Olano moving up onto the tail of one of his teammates here, letting his teammates set the pace, but it looks as if Escartin has gone again.
And the other guy's Heras, I think.
Heras is there to help him, but look at the white jersey there in fourth position. That's Jose Maria Jimenez marking the big attack again and leaving Olano, as he was yesterday, to ride the mountain slopes at his own tempo.
Well, that is amazing, but even so, the rider seems to be helping his Fernandez. Manuel Jeans is trying to set the pace there for Olano. Surprisingly, Beltran hit the wall and dropped out of the picture pretty fast. Laurent Jalabert still up there, now in his Champion of France jersey. Continues the climb. It's really steep just here, but the big boys have gone again. Escartin, Roberto Heras, Jimenez playing the perfect policeman's just jumped onto the train and gone away again. Of course he's going to take more time, and very soon will be a challenger to his own teammate almost by default.
Amazing the performance. This man really is becoming the man of the match here at the Tour of Spain this year. There's a good shot of Lance Armstrong there sitting comfortably on the wheel of Alex Zuller, who in turn was sitting on the wheel of his former teammate Laurent Jalabert. But there, Olano just sitting comfortably in second position, allowing his teammate to do all of the pacemaking. He's not panicking at all. A very sensible ride, because he knows he cannot respond to the attacks of these climbers like Escartin and his own teammate Jose Maria Jimenez. But the big manoeuvre again today coming from the Kelme squad, trying to wrest the lead off the shoulders of Abraham Olano.
Well, it's been another glorious day in the Pyrenees for watching the Tour. The sun is shining, the riders are responding with a marvellous day of racing, and they're now on the steep part of the climb. As they continue to accelerate, the crowd running alongside them, but not for long here. As they continue to set the tempo, our camera's staying a lot with Olano, but of course remember the breakaway is up front. It's in the top left of our picture now. As the race again, a desperate battle for the finishing line, and Escartin is in the action with Jimenez and Roberto Heras, and the guy from Vitalico is Clavero.
Clavero, a very good rider. He's become much more visible over the last couple of days here. But here is the main group behind, with Abraham Olano just getting onto the back wheel there. You can see Oscar Kamenzin very happy to be in this big group here as well.
There's the four leaders on the left, and they're still setting tempo, front and back of the chase group in the bottom of the picture here. But this now is a bitter battle for the summit, and there's the time gaps. So Escartin hasn't been allowed to gain a lot of time over Olano over these 2 days here, and he certainly tried to do that, because if we go to flatter roads, of course, advantage will leave him for a while. And the two boys from Kelme looking good now, and if anybody deserves a stage win right now, it's one of these two. 1 kilometre, Paul.
1 kilometre to go. Escartin still sitting in second position, letting Heras do all of the work, with Clavero sitting on the back, and Jimenez looking very comfortable. A magnificent performance by him on these mountain stages. And still further down the road, Olano is going through all kinds of difficulties. You can see there, just to stay on the wheel of the rider in front of him. He really is suffering, and Modesto teammate there looks over his shoulder just to keep an eye on the face of Abraham Olano to see if there are any telltale signs that he may well get dropped because of the speed here.
Now, well, there's not much wrong with Olano today. He's not losing more than a few seconds on the climb. He's just being caught a little bit there by an acceleration by Zuller, of all people, who seems to have dropped away from this race, and Jalabert. Jalabert looks over the shoulder, Zuller's on it, and in fact coming up into the slipstream is Olano. He's going to give them nothing at all. The only riders he can't control through the Pyrenees are the boys from Kelme, and they have ridden superbly. I think they've used the whole team over the last 2 days to launch attacks and to break up this field, and in fairness it hasn't really come off at all. Their ability has not been much more than people like Jimenez or Olano, and Jimenez is going again. Surely he's not going to get 2 out of 2 in the Pyrenees, but he's going for it, and Heras is right behind him too. Yeah, also Escartin and Clavero, the four are sprinting it out. He's leading from the front here, and he seems to be so strong, the king of the mountains, in his rightful position of first as he comes up to the line. Are they going to take it? But there's a nasty left-hander. He's still sprinting in that big gear, and they're not going to get him. 3 stage wins and 2 back-to-back in the Pyrenees, and he'll notch off a few more seconds as he comes up closer to his teammate Abraham Olano. Here's the rest coming in, Zuller and Jalabert making it across the line. And I think also they one of the riders from Banesto here, having left his teammate Olano, gets in, losing just 19 seconds to Jimenez on that climb. But there will be a little bit of a closing of the teammates again there on that result. Well, just look at that, the King of the Mountains. He's having such a superb tour. There's Lance Armstrong, losing a lot less today, round about 45 seconds. So there's the result of the stage, as we call it. Zuller coming home in 5th place overall in the King of the Mountains, building his lead now. Jimenez and the early leader Cerezo and Jalabert down to 3rd, and in the individual classification, well, there you can see it for yourselves. Clavero is now 5th, and the mountains for the moment are going to be on the backs of the riders as they head on to slightly flatter roads. And indeed, this stage, well, it's a little bit ripply, isn't it, as the riders now go from Benasque to Jaca, on the edge of the Pyrenees, 187 kilometres, and the riders now will have covered by the end of the day over 2,000 kilometres, Paul.
They certainly will. It's been a tough tour so far, and in the main field, Jose Maria Jimenez looking very comfortable indeed, but there's a small break up the road again. Everybody trying to put pressure on, even on these stages which aren't regarded as big mountain stages. There's no flat on these courses, which opens up a lot of chances for riders a lot further down the overall standings to go out on the move. And one man who's read the move correctly today was Leon van Bon from Rabobank.
Yeah, he's in there. So too is Gianni Bugno of the Mapei team, and he's up there as well. This man of massive experience, riding his last big stage race before retirement. He will still come up for the World Championships. The Italians no doubt will select him for that, and then at the end of a long career which has been a scintillating one. Anyway, no big challenges coming this way at the moment. Jimenez relaxing just that little bit after his long escapade in the mountains, and Leonid Berrutia there was the balding Spanish rider who flew through our lens. Looks very much like Herminio Diaz-Zabala. And look at the way the race is splitting up now, though.
Well, the front group has split off there. You can see, in fact, Gianni Bugno came straight across to this leading group of 4 riders now, leading the rest of that big group up the road in their wake. And Gianni Bugno reading the move very well indeed as he got across there to the front split.
Well, in fairness, if he's going to win a stage in his final year of the Vuelta, it'll have to be today, I think, because he's not going to find a better move than this. He probably knows it. He's a brilliant bike rider. I remember in last year's Tour of Langkawi how on the climb in the Genting Highlands, a vicious climb, he completely blew apart, so he helped one of the local riders get up the climb. He dropped back, he pushed him in, he helped him up there. Well, that rider later on in the Tour of the Philippines ran out the winner.
It's a great performance by a man who certainly is one of the gentlemen of the sport at the moment. He's in that leading group of 4 riders. I'm surprised, Phil, to see from that back group there that Leon van Bon didn't get across here. In fact, it looks as if Bugno's decided these guys are going too slow for him.
Well, you know, we could be witnessing here a great escape by the Italian. Everybody looking at each other and saying, well, come on, who's going to take up the attack? Because, in fact, Bugno has gone. He's waiting for no decision here, and he's going to have a go himself.
Well, Jose Ramon Uriarte from Festina was the guy trying to get across there, but sitting down there, powerful as he always has been, Gianni Bugno now has opened up a gap of around about 15 seconds on the chasers, and you can hear the crowd really cheering for this man who has been a great favourite.
Well, good for him, and everybody will be delighted if he keeps this up, because Gianni Bugno has been a great star. Riders trying to get across. The Kelme boys organising the peloton here and keeping control of things, but I think everybody would love to see Bugno take this stage. Over the years, Gianni Bugno has won a pot full of races, including 2 World Championships, twice the winner at Alpe d'Huez, and he's won classic races like Milan-San Remo, which at the time when he won was a record average speed. I'm not sure, in fact, if it still is.
10 kilometres left to go still, and in fact the group that Gianni Bugno is in have all been swept up now, and in fact the chase behind him is being taken up by Santiago Blanco, who's been joined there by Roberto Sgamboluri. So the race really starting to change in the main field, starting to pick up quite a lot.
Well, 7 kilometres to go. There's Escartin, and Laurent Jalabert didn't make the gains that they wanted in the Pyrenees, as the race now running atop on a par with the French frontier. The stage tomorrow, by the way, will not go into France. The Spanish organised deciding not to tempt fate in case their riders are stopped at the frontiers and all their bags searched. It's not so much that they're worried about, it's the fact they might get delayed and the race might be delayed.
Well, there is Uriarte dropping back down there towards the main field. He's been passed by Santiago Blanco now, who is running second out on the road.
Well, this is unbelievable now. As Bugno can hang on to the finish, he's just 4 kilometres away from the line in that typical time trial position, former champion of Italy, as the other 2 riders are trying to bridge the gap, but they're really stuck in no man's land at the moment.
You can see that this is a great performance by Gianni Bugno here. 3 kilometres remaining to get down to the finish line, and his time gap last time over Race Radio was up to 1 minute, and the main field not really reacting to organise the chase behind him.
So this really all broke up around the 50 kilometres to go mark, and gradually that leading group has shattered itself, and they're not going to get back up there now. We've got Blanco here sitting on the wheel of Gamboluri, and now Gianni Bugno is about to live what will probably be the last time of his career, probably the last time that we even commentate on him as a big time winner. He's going to cherish the moment, because this is his swan song done in the finest of styles, a stage win in the Vuelta a España to end a sparkling career. And there's still a few more stages to go, but somehow you get the feeling that this is the end for Gianni. And Blanco coming in and taking a very cool second place, just under 2 minutes down in fact, and Gamboluri taking third place on the line. And the race has split up terrifically today, but not by the men that matter. Uriarte here, he's coming home. The clock has ticked by over 3 minutes now. So other riders had the chance today. It hasn't done a thing to alter the overall classification at all. It'll still be Olano, Jalabert, Escartin and Jimenez on the top of the leaderboard, and they'll all live to fight another day. And Olano looking pretty satisfied with the way things are going just now, but watch out for his teammate Jimenez in fourth. And the race now coming towards the end of its second week, just one full week to go, and instead of racing into France today from Jaca, the race has moved along to Saminamigo, and they made a circuit there of some 208 kilometres, slightly less hilly. I don't suppose there'll be too many complaints about that, but even so it's going to be quite a testing circuit. The riders going over the Alto de la Navassa on 3 occasions. And Paul, they've got off to a cracking start again.
They certainly have. The guys seeing this is a chance to get a stage victory here. And one team who's really been aggressive this afternoon is Vitalico Seguros, one of the top teams with the biggest budgets in Spain this year, a new team on the block, but certainly they haven't had an awful lot of success. And interesting to see that Rolf Sorensen is out on the attack for the first time. I'd almost forgotten that he was riding the Tour of Spain this year after giving an option to miss out on the Tour de France.
That's right. He was in the break yesterday with Leon Van Boom, but we didn't get a chance to show him to you before he was no longer there. Anyway, he's in the group here, the wily Rolf, who's preparing for the World Championship, which is one of his targets, or the target for this year, and that was the reason he didn't ride the Tour de France, and he's come to the Tour of Spain for some form. But Vitalico, as Paul has said, one of the top teams on the Spanish circuit as far as money goes this year, but they could do with a win in this race right now.
Well, the man on the lead for them is Andrei Zinchenko, who's got an advantage of around about 25 seconds at the moment, which is why everybody's panicking trying to get across to this rider, a very good Russian rider who's been pro for 4 years now, but still no victories under his belt.
He's a tall man, as the Estepona rider here, Echevarria, is trying to join in, and Dixons, the Belgian rider, on the far side of our camera. Little healthy group this, because it's not going to upset the heads of the race, so they may not chase it down too hard, as they've taken advantage of the escape.
Well, a good move by Vitalico, because they've also put a guardian angel in there for their man up in the road, because the man on the back of that group of 4 riders chasing was Juan Carlos Dominguez, a very good sprinter when it comes down to the finishes.
And the Benesto boys playing the perfect team here as they look after their man in yellow, and the whole team at the front now just keeping the tempo right. But here comes the star of the day, the Russian rider Zinchenko. He's on the climb and looking as though he's suffering a little bit now.
Well, he's been out for an awful long time, and it is a very hot day out here once again on the roads of the Tour of Spain. Dierckxen there in the group. This man really has been a revelation this year. Started off his career somewhat as a Kermes rider, but now he's really progressed to being a good rider in these big 3-week stage races. But Zinchenko is really stretching out his lead at the moment.
And the Benesto boys more concerned with looking after Olano, and it looks as though Jalabert content to mark him. Here comes the chasing quartet. Anyway, they're through the top now. These two are still trying to get up to the front road. There's a lot of riders here feeling they have a chance of a stage victory, especially as they're not affecting the destiny of the Amarillo jersey at the moment. This man, who is really surprising us today to get a ride like this in, because as Paul said, he's never had a win and he's been on the circuit a few years now.
I'll tell you one thing though, Phil, he's in fact now extended his lead to over 2 minutes, and I have to tell you, this is no gift to Vitalico, because there's a lot of animosity in the Spanish peloton to this team, who came in with big money and bought up an awful lot of riders. So this is no gift horse, and he's actually riding away from a group of 4 men, all working pretty well to chase him down.
Well, that's amazing. Well, there's the 2 chasers, and here come the rest of them now. And it looks as though they might all get caught here, except Zinchenko, who's hanging on in there. There's a terrific tempo being done by this chase bunch, and there's plenty of riders there right now, but there's only 4 kilometres left to go for Zinchenko, a former member of the Soviet Union when he was an amateur and was a very, very good team pursuiter. I'm not sure, Paul, whether he's a team time trialist or a team pursuiter, but he was one or the other.
He was a team time trialist, actually, a very good rider indeed. And you can see this group of 4 riders now. They're obviously thinking about the presence there, sitting right on the back of the group of Dominguez. They're worried about the fact that even if they do manage to get across to their lone leader, they're going to get in a counter-attack from Dominguez. 2 kilometres to go now, and nobody, I don't think, is going to catch Zinchenko, who really is digging deep. Although there are always guys trying to get out of the main field. This is Alexander Moos, who rides for the Seiko Cannondale squad.
It's all too late because Zinchenko gets his first win, and he also has given a great boost to the team here today, and they'll certainly be pleased about that. Champagne tonight. Here's the sprint for second place. Dixons gets it there just ahead of Echevarria and Serpellini, but this man has got his first big time win and he'll be delighted. Overall, no change at all. Alana looks a bit confused, but he should be used to these kisses by now, and in the King of the Mountains, Jimenez a clear leader here.